I am really interested in the relationship between individual and organizational change. So when Megan and Chuck called and asked if I'd share 7 minutes with you, I really quickly sent out an email to 12 of my favorite client leaders, and I asked for their burning questions around change. And what I got back were 12 different answers, which actually did not give me the direction that I had hoped for. The one that interested me the most, though, came from a young rising leader in an LA entertainment industry company. And he said, you know, it used to be that we'd mount a change effort, and then things would stabilize for a while, and then we'd mount a new initiative. He said, now it's just like change is the way it is. When are we going to stop talking about leading change and start talking about adaptivity? And how we as leaders need to nurture our own adaptivity and the adaptivity of our teams. So this really caught my attention. So I want to tell you something about science. And actually that should terrify you, because I fulfilled my chemistry credits here as an undergraduate by taking an honors seminar in winemaking. But there's a really fascinating online science salon called edge.com. And their mission is to reveal the leading edge of the knowledge of the planet. So each year they take about 150 of the world's greatest, most complex thinkers. These are Nobel Prize-winning physicists and geoastrophysicists and mathematicians and all kinds of really smart scientists, and they ask them a question. And last year their question was this: what scientific concept would improve everyone's cognitive toolkit? And the answer was surprising. Learn to love uncertainty. Scientifically proven, they said, is an oxymoron. Truth is just a model. People who don't see their actions as experiments will continue to learn less well from their own experience than those who do. So they're talking about the same thing. And I think this has huge implications for us here in this room, because in our lives, in our families, in our work, in the world, we are all taking leadership in the face of uncertainty. And it's intriguing to me that it's so hard. The other day I was coaching a leader on having a difficult conversation, because when change happens in organizations, the rate of conflict skyrockets. So I was talking to this woman, and she just kept talking. She started her opening statement. We were practicing. The other person wasn't there. But she started her opening statement, and she went on and on and on. So finally I said, so this is the point where you close your mouth, and they open theirs. And she looked terrified. And she said, but I'll lose control over what's going to happen. And I was like, I leaned forward, and I was like, I've got news. You never had it to begin with. So, it's not that things weren't uncertain before, I think, and now they are. It's just that maybe it's becoming more visible to us. Or maybe, I say this with great humility, we're becoming a little more addicted to our own sense of control. I had breakfast with a guy last week who has started 32 companies. He's got a lot of energy. And I was tired just hearing about it. And he described to me, he said something that I think is a really good first step around this. He works with a lot of entrepreneurs, and he said, leaders have got to have the humility and the courage to admit that they really don't know what's going to happen. And I can tell you for sure, I had no idea that when I was a junior here, I'd have a nervous breakdown. And I would drop out of school on medical leave. And with a great amount of support from Chuck and Megan, I would finally graduate hanging on by my fingernails. And because of that, I wouldn't do my travel study after my junior year. I'd do it after I graduated, my senior year. And pretty darn disappointed, a cultural anthropology major, I didn't feel stable enough to leave the country and travel internationally. So while my friends were working for Mother Teresa and doing all of these things, I designed a 4-month travel study around the United States. And because of that, I would end up, several months into it, driving through Portland, Oregon at 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning on my way to Alaska, and I'd have a fender bender. And I would get out of my car, and because I didn't want the two other stoners who, I didn't say other, the two stoners just came right out of my mouth. Oh. I gave the two stoners who were involved in this little fender bender my last $300. I mean, the last $300 of my travel study stipend, because I didn't want them to report it to my insurance company. And I am sorry, Lucy Chatham, wherever you are, and other trustees, I'm really sorry this news is coming to you in this way. But because of that, I would walk up and down Hawthorne Boulevard to try and find a job. And I would get one that afternoon at what was then a very small coffee company. We had 7 stores. And because I was interested in anthropology, I would notice that the customers in our stores were really coming in for connection and a sense of belonging and caring and a little treat in the middle of their stressful days. And because I was interested in anthropology, I would study coffee rituals, and I'd start writing about them. And Howard would ask me to come up to Seattle, and that would become the base of our experiential marketing effort and work, and we would take the company public with it and go all over the world. I had no idea any of those things were going to happen. So a theme that I heard across the monthly conversations this morning is kind of related, because I think there are a lot of these kinds of stories around the room, and the theme that I heard is that the very fact that we're here means that at some point early on, someone recognized in us a kind of success. And I think uncertainty and success have a very uneasy relationship. So I want to tell you something I learned about that I thought was very helpful. You may have heard of a researcher named Carol Dweck. She's at Stanford. She has a very unfortunate last name, Dweck. She's spent a lot of time being very curious about the mindset around success. And she's done research with elite athletes, actually, and race car drivers and executives. But most of her research has been with students. And here's the deal. She did a great piece of research with 400 elementary school students in New York City. She gave them 3 tests. The first was engineered to be very appropriate to their grade level. The second was purposefully made difficult enough that every child failed. And the third was engineered to be the same as the first. And everyone in the study, every child, got a single line of praise when they were handed their results after the first test. What was praised was different. For half of them, they were praised for their intelligence. They were given their score and told, "You were very smart." For the other half, when they were given their score, what was said to them was, "You worked really hard." And for the half who were told, "You're very smart," after they finished that third test, which was just the same as the first, their scores dropped 20%. And the other half, who were praised for their effort in learning, their scores went up 30%. Yeah. I don't even have kids, and I am amazed by that. And I say this with a lot of humility also, because her work shows that it's not that hard to change your mindset from one to the other. You just have to be aware of what others have been telling you, what you've been telling yourself. You have to attend to it. You can't be as effective stepping into uncertainty if you are always worried about succeeding. So here's where I'm going to end. It turns out, without really realizing it, that I've spent a lot of time exploring this through my work with On Your Feet. We were 12 people, 12 years ago, 4 different countries, and we were all really interested in how you might use improv, like improvisational theater, to improve work and life. And it turns out, too, that it's a great thing I started working with On Your Feet, because I needed a lot of this work myself in my own life. So I'm just going to tell you a few things about it before I close. There is a direct relationship between what clients tell us about their people's willingness to take risks and what we actually experience in the room. We hear again and again, "Oh, this is great here, but it will never work in Korea. It will never work in China. You have not met our legal department, engineers. And you know what? They all play. And they all take risks in front of each other when we create the right container for it. Improvisers are the kind of people who wear t-shirts that say scripts are for wussies and fail big or go home. It's not magic. We are all improvising all the time, actually, whether we realize it or not. And the question is, do we consciously practice the kinds of things that are going to help us be really, really happy to step into uncertainty? Or do we cling to that illusion of control? So I'm going to leave you with a few things that improvisers consciously practice. And they call them practices because you have to practice them. Improvisers consciously know they're stepping into uncertainty, and they run out and they hug it. And here's how they do it. They do not speed up. They slow down. They don't play small. They make bold choices. They do not, and I am telling you the truth here, they do not try and be clever or funny. They contribute just what seems obvious to them in the moment, and they trust that their fellow players will step in and fill in the rest. They don't deliver the whole answer. They get deeply, madly curious, excited to see what their fellow players are going to contribute. They don't drive the scene with their great ideas. They build on each other's offers, and they are willing consistently to be changed by others. They don't worry about making mistakes. They trust their partners to come to the rescue, and they always focus, always, on giving the scene and their partners what's needed in the moment. And they choose to assume, again and again, against all odds, that it is all going to work out perfectly. And I think it will, if we see our job as creating the conditions for our teams and our families and our children to do those things. Thank you.